Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this is the Aer Capsule Pack 35 liter. It's an interesting, chunky take on the big black travel bag genre, whose main claim to fame is this large squircle-shaped duffle-style opening and this top organizer pocket, which is quite of an unusual combination for these kind of bags here. Now, its main claim to infamy, perhaps, is that the zippers on this bag are actually really difficult to operate, especially when you first get it, and it tends to be quite heavy for the capacity to size ratio. Now, this bag is manufactured by Aer, which is a San Francisco, America-based retailer who creates some really interesting tech-oriented bags in a work, gym, and travel line kind of categorization. They all have this very distinctive aesthetic, this really thick, heavy 1680D Cordura, black on black on black, though they do also have gray colorways, just everything really being beefy and overbuilt. And this particular pack, the Capsule Pack, is a collaboration between Aer and 9 Hours, which is a Japanese capsule hotel chain. Now, I live here. I had never heard of 9 Hours until I got this bag, but I'm not usually the target demographic for capsule hotels. It's available in black and also a gray colorway, and in 35 liters, which is this bag right here, and in a larger 40-liter Capsule Max, which is a little bit larger and has more capacity. Let's start by talking about some of the advantages and disadvantages of this bag. So one of the key pros or advantages of this bag is it does marry this really large central capacity, this duffel style opening central capacity, which with, as I mentioned, sort of a top organizer panel section for on-the-go access. It's ruggedly overbuilt, and that's another kind of pro of this bag. Everything is beefy from the materials to the execution. And then once the bag is actually opened, it's really easy to load stuff in and out of it once you have it open. And finally, it has a separate laptop compartment, which I think is also a nice pro. Very often in duffel style bags, you don't have a separate laptop compartment. And it has convertibility between different carry modes, from briefcase to messenger to backpack mode. Some people might consider that a pro. In terms of the cons, well, it has some of the worst zippers I've felt or seen in a production bag for a long time, and it's sort of tragically so too, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. It is very heavy. It's a 1.85 kilograms, which is quite heavy for a bag of only 35 liters capacity, and actually has less than 35 liters capacity functionally, I would say. The convertibility function, which I did mention as a pro for some people, I personally don't find that useful. Like, I think it adds a lot of extra weight and detracts from some of the usable space inside of the bag, so I consider that a bit of a negative. And the organizer panel itself here at the top, actually I find that theoretically it's a great idea, but in use it's actually not that practical. There's some issues with it, especially if the bag is overpacked here. And finally, the bag tends to be pretty ponderous on the back, partially due to its shape and just the weight of the bag itself to begin with, and kind of the stiffness of the frame sheet, so that's another kind of disadvantage. In terms of who this bag is for, I think it's for people who are taking short, medium load type trips, urban trips, so you have a few chunky items and maybe you don't need another backpack or anything like that. I think it's for people who are hard on their bags, because this bag, as I mentioned, is really tough and it will stand up. I own a lot of Aer bags, many of them for years. They've all held up great. This bag has almost no damage on it, and I've been traveling with it for a few months now. And finally, I think it's for people who like the aesthetic of Aer, and particularly like the big chunky take on the travel bag style. In terms of who it's not for, people who want to carry a lot of stuff or who want to maximize their carriage to weight ratio, this bag is not that efficient at that, so there are definitely better choices. And people who are traveling on small budget carriers where the weight of your carry-on is an issue, because this bag is quite heavy to begin with and you can't even carry that much, this may not be the best bag for that particular style of travel. And finally, people with smaller frames, this is a big chunky bag. For myself, I found that it's actually okay. The 35 liter one, the 40 liter one was starting to look pretty chunky even on me, and I think smaller framed folks may have some challenges with that. So let's start with an overview of the bag. As I've been kind of rotating it around, you can clearly see it's a chunky square style bag. It's got some rounded corners, of course, but it's unmistakably a big, heavy, boxy, chunky rectangle. If we start with this side of the bag here, first thing you notice is the Aer logo, and then you notice this zippable, hideable water bottle pocket. I like that it includes a water bottle pocket, and you see the zippable, concealable design on several of Aer's bags. If we take something like this, which is the Microlight 500 milliliter double-walled insulated water bottle, this is actually one of the lightest and smallest ones I found. It fits in here without any problems. You can see here. The challenge, I guess, is that it's a bit of a loose fit and it tends to come out, I found, especially when I'm walking around with it. So you have to be a little bit careful. Or not when I'm walking around with it, it tends to work its way up, and then when I set it down, it tends to fall out. If we take something more like, this is like a hydro flask, which I think a lot of people tend to have. In this case, I have a rubber stopper on the back, actually specifically for this, so that it would not come out as easily. But you can see it kind of tends to ride pretty high on this pouch here. And this one would work its way out until I put this rubber stopper on the bottom to kind of keep it stuck in there. Anyway, I'm glad they have it, and it's better than not having one, but just something to kind of keep in mind. The bottom of the bag is unadorned, and then flipping it to this side, we see two things. First of all, you see this carry handle, and the carry handle is very well constructed in my opinion. It has a kind of stiff, reinforced part inside, very well padded, and then the edges are rounded. And so, the other thing is, it's located in the center of the bag in both axes, so in this axis and in this axis. What that means is, first of all, it's very comfortable to carry the bag, except, you know, the weight obviously is the weight, but the handle itself is very well made. It's easy to carry the bag, and when you pick it up here, the bag is centered in both dimensions. You don't get like the bag sag this way or this way like you do if the handle were off center. Now, you do notice you do get some bag sag in this. When you pick it up, you get some bag sag here. There's no reinforcement here, but the attachment points are very well reinforced. So I find for short distances or short manipulations of the bag, this handle is actually really well made. You also see these two Duraflex plastic clips here. That's for the second carry mode. So obviously this is one carry mode, this is briefcase style mode. Second carry mode, you take this included shoulder strap, which is nothing to write home about, but it gets the job done. Has two adjusters on each slide length. Two slide length adjusters on each side, some plastic clips. They just clip on like this and like this. And then you can carry the bag as a kind of shoulder bag. Now, I did find that in this one, because of the shape of the bag and the weight and just how big and bulky it is, it's quite ponderous and it tends to swing when you're walking. And this kind of jerks your body back and forth depending on how big you are. You can, of course, grab this handle here to help stabilize the load while you're walking, but I personally didn't find it very comfortable to carry the bag in this style for very long. Moreover, they do show that you can sort of wear this crossbody style, you know, with the strap across your body like this and off of your back. I did not enjoy that at all because it's so heavy and it kind of pushes the weight so far away from the center of gravity that I found that was a very painful on my lower back. One nice thing is how easy it is to clip or unclip these straps. And that's true of the other straps I'll show you here in a second. The top of the bag just has the same thing, another beefy handle. The idea here is that if you set the bag down, you can just pick it up like this. Like maybe when you're waiting in line, you can pick it up like this, there's no problem. If you pack out the bag properly, it can stand up, but like right now, it's not quite packed out like that. Part of the challenge is it has a very stiff frame sheet, and that tends to topple the bag forward. And this part doesn't have any reinforcement, so it kind of tends to collapse under load. But if you pack it out right, you can stand it up, in which case this handle becomes very useful. Also, the classic positioning of these handle here and here means it's very easy to chuck it in the overhead bin. Flipping the bag around to the back, we see the shoulder straps. Now, actually, these shoulder straps are pretty well made. They're not the most comfortable in the world for sure, but I like that they have like a stiff plastic reinforcer or something, layer on here, same as with the handles. And that, coupled with the very stiff frame sheet, the back has a very stiff frame sheet, means that if you clip these shoulder straps on, lock the sternum strap, which is adjustable, and then tighten these two load lifters. So the bag has, the top of the bag extends beyond where the shoulder straps connect. So you can actually, you know, so you need these load lifters, so you tighten it up and it kind of gives you this nice arch and brings the top of the weight of the bag closer to you. So if you lock in the straps and you lock in the top like this, you get a very nice, like secure, locked in harness. And that helps a lot with the weight and the mass of this bag, because it is ponderous, it is heavy, it is bulky, but still, with this kind of locked in shoulder strap and the reinforcement of the shoulder strap, locked in nature, hard frame sheet, and the locked in, and kind of locking in with these hard shoulder straps, stiff shoulder straps, it actually makes carrying the bag relatively secure, although you still do have the weight on there. I like that, actually. Now, this shoulder straps hold another kind of trick. You can see here they have these plastic buckles. And again, notice how easy it is to clip and unclip them. And what you can do if you unclip them and you release the load lifters, it's very easy just to tuck these shoulder straps into here, and then they hide away. These toggle ends also fit into these little holes here, although I find that a little bit more annoying and hard to work them in and out, especially when the bag is packed out. And now you have a much cleaner carry if you're doing the briefcase thing, or you're doing the shoulder bag thing, or you want to check in the bag, because the main zippers all lock on this bag, so you can check it in. There's some downsides to this though, right? First thing is this pocket where the bag shoulder straps hide away is very stiff, and it's quite thick. And this plus the hard frame sheet plus the laptop container plus another inner layer adds a lot of depth to the bag. And I found that that actually robs internal space here. I'll show you in a little bit here. I kind of can't imagine that most people will carry this bag in this style, in the briefcase style or the shoulder bag style, as opposed to the backpack style most of the time. So I kind of wish they had not messed around with all that convertibility and just left them with really good shoulder straps and kind of given us back some of this usable space in the inside of the bag. I find this is an area where like the incremental function here is probably very little, and the additional loss of functionality conversely was much greater. There's finally these little loops at the bottom, so you can clip on an additional waist belt that's sold separately. For me, I found that they hit too high on me, so that they didn't provide any load carry support, but they provided like stability support. However, I found that this harness system was enough and stiff enough and hard enough and good enough, that secure enough that I didn't need an additional waist belt. A little loop up here so you can hang the bag up, and then there's a luggage pass-through, which I didn't find very useful because it's just one little, strap here, and this bag is so heavy it would easily twist and then kind of topple over to the side. I didn't find that useful at all. So let's flip the bag like this, and we get into the main opening of the bag. And here's actually where I found one of the biggest challenges with this bag, which are these zippers. Now the zippers have been wearing in decently. They were terrible to begin with over the last few months. Now the problem with these zippers is that they tend to bind when you grab them. Like they can kind of go like this, and this is a lot smoother than it was in the beginning. But what tends to happen is you grab it and then it catches like this, and that's partially because of the squircle design. It's really hard to get around these rounded corners, and you can see that Aer knew about this because they included 4 counter pulls on each side. And so the idea is you can counter pull here, counter pull here, counter pull here to open and to close the bag. And usually I find I only need to do about 2 counter pulls to open the bag, depending on the angle, and if I'm very careful. If I kind of pull the zipper out, you can kind of work it around here like this. But this is a friction that I didn't think needed to happen, because one of the advantages of a duffle-style top-loading bag is it's supposed to be easy to get in and out of and easy to load in and out of. And to kind of mar that experience with these really stiff zippers that require multiple deliberate actions, I thought was not a great choice. On top of that, besides the squircle shape, the choice of these AquaGuard zippers, I think, adds an extra layer of friction. These are just obviously harder to use than regular zippers. But in this case, they were very much a choice of aesthetics over functionality, because the bag itself is not waterproof in any way. There's no tape seams. There's no like waterproof material. So this AquaGuard zipper adds no incremental functionality, and conversely, it takes away functionality because it now is even harder to kind of open. And I didn't think that was a great choice. I would not necessarily have made that choice. And I forgot if I mentioned, but like this sort of, this squircle-shaped opening of the bag is sort of the fruit of the collaboration with 9 Hours, designed to evoke the capsule entrance to their the pod entrance to their capsule hotels, sort of the squircle shape. So anyway, this kind of annoying friction is not great. You flip open the bag, and right away you notice like this big main duffel or big main volume, which I kind of like. You can see here what I mean when I say that this bag does well under medium or moderate load urban trips here. There's some big chunky items in here, and there's a little bit of space to move around, but it's really easy to get these loaded in and out, but it's not overstuffed. Let's start, before we get into that, let's look at the top lid pocket here. So it's a single flap lid like this, and it has this nice stiff mesh that you see in a lot of Aer's bags, travel bags. And inside I just have a rain shell here. What I like about this mesh is that it helps the pocket retain some stiffness when you're loading in and out of it, which I thought was quite nice. It makes it easier to load. Sometimes these lid pockets can become a little bit floppy. It also, though this pocket doesn't necessarily have its own dimension, the patterning and the stretch of the materials is such as that you can fit a fair amount of stuff in there. It doesn't look terrible. It tends to kind of just, you know, form a nice rounded shape. So I thought that was nice. On the inside here, very briefly, you know, I have a packable backpack. This is the Mystery Ranch in and out. I have a Bellroy DOP kit. I have a Bellroy electronics kit. I have a Sony A7R4 with 24-105 on here. I have a hair iron because, you know, you gotta look good, and if you don't, it doesn't matter. And then finally I have an Aer packing cube with my clothes. And if we take all of those things out of here, you're left with this big main volume of the bag. And it is large and it is spacious, excuse me, but not as much as you might expect, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I want to draw your attention to a couple of the advantages here, which is this retains a nice open stiff box shape, which makes it super easy to load once you manage to fight with these zippers, get them open. And you have this nice little, like, it's just such a satisfying, like, tucking it in here is such a satisfying feeling, and it's super easy to throw things in there. You don't have to fuss with like holding up the edges of the bag or anything like that. I do really appreciate that. Also, you notice it has this little like lip here where the bottom of the bag has some space for it meets the entrance of the lid, and it's really nice to be able to tuck something in there. It just kind of holds it in there. You have another one on this side as well, and it's super nice actually. Now, the challenge, or the thing I alluded to earlier, is I don't know if you can see here, but looks like there's almost like a kind of you know, bulge inside here, and that's because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of space taken up here. Right now I have the shoulder straps stowed, which accentuates the problem. But even if you didn't have the shoulder straps stowed, you have like the bottom of the bag comes to around right here. The inside of the bag comes to around here. And then the actual the actual bottom of the bag comes to around here. So that's around this much space, which you've kind of lost in depth in this bag. And yes, again, I have the shoulder strap stowed here, but even if you take it out, it doesn't make that much of a difference. It's because there's this extra pocket, and then there's like a stiff frame sheet, and then the laptop and another thing. And it just robs a lot of usable space in this particular index here. And I feel like, again, if they had taken out those convertible shoulder straps, they might have been in a better position, or if they had not done the convertible functionality, might have been able to squeeze a couple more centimeters or another centimeter or so of volume in this direction. And where that really becomes evident here is if you try and load the bag with more than just a small moderate load. So I toss these two things in here, toss this in here, and we toss this in there, toss a camera in there. And then we take something that I think a lot of people might also want to carry, which is just some gym shoes and clothes, and you kind of just tuck it into this lip here. You can do it, right? You have to fight with the bag. You can definitely load it out like this, but now it starts to kind of bulge out a bit. And to the bag's credit, it does actually deal well with overpacking to a certain extent, but it gets very heavy, very ponderous on the back. We'll take off these straps here. And now you can see it's quite a chunky beast here. And for me, I feel like, again, you look at the external volume of this bag or dimensions of this bag, you expect it to be able to carry much more stuff than comfortably than it does. Again, to its credit, it does sort of handle overpacking decently, but I just wish it had a little bit more natural capacity given the shape of the bag. Let's take this out here. Now there's another kind of downside, two more downsides actually, to the way that this kind of internal volume is a little inefficient. The first one is actually here. If we look at this top organizer panel, what happens is the inside compartment tends to push into this top organizer panel. So if you overload the bag, that makes this even more difficult to use. I've taken out some of the stuff here so we have a little bit of flexibility, and that presents the second challenge with this panel. Let's start with a quick overview of this panel. So this is an organizer panel. It has the same kind of YKK aqua guards here, which are a little bit hard to manipulate, but inside here you have this sort of floppy, single pocket, and then there's two elasticated pockets, a large dump area, and then on this side you have a zippered mesh pocket with a key leash on one end here. And the idea behind this pocket is when you're on the go, you can actually set down this bag here, and then you should be able to, you know, grab your stuff, your wallet, your passport, or whatever out of this. I found that because these two pockets are elasticated, but this main one is not, and that also means the back of these pockets are kind of floppy, things tend to kind of fall out very easily from this pocket here when you're kind of putting the bag on or setting it down or whatever. And very often at the end of a trip, I'll end up with like half of my stuff has sort of just fallen out. I'll open it up and it's sort of in this main container. The second kind of challenge is often, you know, when you're operating this, you've got the bag maybe set on the ground here, and you're trying to get into here, and then all the pockets and stuff are sort of jumbled together, so it's a bit hard to fish out what you need from where. If the bag's not super under load, it's a little bit easier. I just wish that they had another zippered mesh pocket or something in here, or the elastic was a little tighter. In terms of what I have in here, just as a representative load, I have like a Bellroy note taker, I have like a spare USB battery, some earphones, and then over here I have like a wallet, some cards, a toothbrush set, and then inside of the zippered pocket I have like my passport wallet in here. I am glad that they did include this, but just the way in which the things tend to fall out a bit wasn't great, and also the way in which this main volume tends to intrude inside of here, I also didn't think was all that great. There's one last kind of area at the top here that's sort of an organizer panel, and that's this zippered, fleece-lined, cushioned security-ish pocket. It has a lock flat, watertight zipper with a Hypalon zipper garage, and inside of here I just have like my mobile phone. This is the Sony Xperia Z1 Mark II. Now this one actually, when you flip it around, if I'm wearing the bag here, this is the back of the bag and this is the front of the bag. This opens into the outside of the bag, or to the outside side. So it's not the most secure. I wouldn't keep like my mobile phone in here, but earphones or, you know, chapstick or something like that, no problem. Things that are sunglasses, things that you wouldn't mind, I won't say you wouldn't mind they got stolen, but like probably not as important as your passport or your phone, but still want to keep handy here. There's one last compartment on this bag, and that's the main laptop compartment along the back here. This opens up like this, and first thing you notice here is, let's see if we can get it. First thing you notice is the Aer times 9 hours logo here, cushioned, padded, fleece-lined laptop container. This is right now a 13-inch MacBook Pro. It can easily fit a 15 or 16-inch. There's additionally another pocket here, which you can put like an iPad or a Kindle or something like that in there. I found that, as I mentioned, it gets pretty tight in this dimension of the bag, especially if you pack out the inside, or especially if you stow the shoulder straps. So it was putting a lot of pressure on my iPad Pro when I put it in here. And so for myself, I don't even use this pocket because I would get like the key marks from the Magic Keyboard case on the screen. I didn't think that was great. Very, very stiff frame sheet, almost like a GR1 or GR2 in terms of stiffness. Again, I think that's to help kind of maintain the load of this bag here. And then the zipper pulls are asymmetric. They go down all the way on this side, all the way down to here, but on this dimension, they only come up, or on this side, they only come up to here. So there. It will protect your laptop, but again, I just worry about the vertical pressure on this. So, if you like this bag, and there's a lot to like about it, even though it is pretty chunky and these zippers are kind of very frictionful to get into and out of. If you like this bag, but you want to consider some other options, what other options might you have? Well, one of the first options to have that I actually don't own, but you know, looks very similar and you might want to consider, is the Tom Bin Aeronaut. They make a 30 and a 45 liter. When you look at that bag, it looks very much like this bag in terms of the overall concept, except I think they have two access organizer sections or two organizer sections or whatever, sub pockets on each side. Also available in a 30 and then like this is 35, a 30 and then like I think a 45 for the Aeronaut. I don't own that bag, but you might want to look into it. Another bag that you might want to consider, if you like that 1680D Cordura aesthetic, but you want a be more traditional, you know, of Aer, but you want a more traditional travel bag, is the Aer Travel Bag 2. This is Aer Travel Pack 2. Again, same aesthetic, same material build, more pocketing and a much more traditional, like, you know, travel bag style opening. This one flops open. You load it like this, you can see how the walls kind of collapse. You have to sort of hold them up. They don't retain their shape like the other one. You get like that same stiff mesh on here. A little bit more organization for sure. Shoe pocket in here. And then you get the traditional like 2 big black travel bag, 2 panel loader. So this front panel also opens up and you get far superior tech organization on here. I find that the things don't tend to fall out of this one because this bag is always oriented as a kind of vertical backpack style. There's not really a convertibility. It's not really intended to be multi-convertible like the other one. And then of course you also have a you know, separate laptop compartment. Far less stiff frame sheet, which I particularly like for this bag. I think the shape of this as such is closer to your back. Plus has these compression straps that they didn't need such a stiff frame sheet, and then also like security pocket. So this is a great alternative if you like sort of the aesthetic. Maybe you want a slightly more refined style, or you prefer a travel bag style. This is a great other option here. They also have a smaller one, the Aer Travel Pack Small, that I think is around 35 liters. That was the large one. If you like the big black chunky travel bag aesthetic, you like the robustness of the capsule pack, but you just want a slightly different take on the genre, this is the Evergood Civic Travel Bag 40, CTB 40. It's larger than, because this is 40 liters, that one's 35. Even though this is 40 and holds far more than 40 in my opinion, and the other one, the the capsule pack, is only 35, this bag weighs as much as this one, or maybe even less. So this one is, as I mentioned, a very chunky bag. Slightly larger, as you can, maybe you can't see, but it is slightly larger. The tops of the bags are aligned here. You get a very distinctive, big, chunky box on your back, which again, if that's your aesthetic, this is a great thing to consider. You do retain separate external laptop compartment. Very, very rugged materials, far superior harnessing. You retain the stiff, hard to operate zippers. This one operates as a clamshell bag. I've done a full review on this, so I'm not going to get too deeply into this. I'll link that below. This one has a very interesting kind of top loading. Once you do open the clamshell, top loading function similar to the capsule pack, which I found very interesting. And another great thing to consider if you're looking for, you know, kind of a chunky, big black travel bag, boxy style as well. And finally, if you like the big black chunky style, you like the stiff overbuiltness, you like the weight for whatever reason, you might want to consider the the Peak Design travel bag. This is what I consider sort of one of the originators of the modern big black travel bag genre. It is a very traditional big black travel bag in that it opens up clamshell, but it retains that same nice kind of self-supporting structure here, so very easy to load in and out of. Multiple organizer panels inside and out. Superior organization, some expandability. You get another kind of, you know, compartment here, but you can convert it into a single container internal compartment, and then you get some amount of stowability and convertibility with these straps that just tuck away. And similarly, you know, you also lose some of that vertical depth. This is another bag that's quite heavy and overbuilt and chunky, but in its own sort of design aesthetic. And so really, that's it. I like this bag for what it is. It's not going to be and it is not my daily or my always go-to travel bag. But every once in a while, when I want to rock something chunky, and I like just the loading style of this, and I know I'm not going too far and need too much stuff, I will choose this bag. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And if you have a bag you'd like me to review, leave those in the comments below. And if I own it, I will review it. Thank you very much.